bring up my notes. And I'm going to attempt to do a Facebook Live. So we'll see if we can grab some attention that way as well. I tend to struggle with that. So we're gonna try it once. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to waste y'all's time on it. We're just going to go with it. Marty, real quick, where's Einstein? I know we got some dog lovers.
Einstein, come here, sweetheart. Einstein. Look, doggy. Einstein. He's downstairs. Shit. Einstein. You're in demand. Come here. Einstein, want a treat? That may work. Einstein.
There you go.
I am the world's worst dog trainer. You may want to get some of my advice, but you don't know shit from me about dog training. Einstein. God, I've been so good to this dog, and he still treats it. Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So we have Annette Lyons Evans.
Yes, she is also a member of the W2 Capitalist.
Okay. Einstein, where are you? Come here. This thing couldn't even begin without Einstein. All right, I'll be good. I won't do that. All right, Einstein, come here. All right, I give up. I failed. I'm 0 for 1.
Well, we didn't hire you for your dog training ability, right? So that's okay. And I put you on the spot. So
you hired me, as we said in our pre-interview, for my pimping ability.
That's right. Yeah.
Hello, Jennifer Juarez.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Jennifer is also another great member of the W2 Capitalist Mastermind group. So even though she claims not to be, she's probably one of the most organized members of the group. So, all right, here we go. So I'm going to mute everybody except for myself and Marty while we're doing this. And then we're going to, just like as we do in the W2 Capitalist, you guys raise your hand virtually to ask a question, and we'll go from there. But we're going to kick this off. So for those of you, there's other people attending the webinar that are not W2 Capitalists, and those of you watching on Facebook Live, every month, the W2 Capitalist Mastermind group, we focus on a specific topic, and this month's topic is on negotiation. Okay, so members of the W2 Capitalist Mastermind group were challenged to read the book. I got it wrong. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I got it wrong a couple of days ago. And we have daily challenges that are geared toward incorporating those tactics discussed in the book. I know, Jamie, you've been very active in responding to those challenges and seeing the progress you've made and the things that you've tried. Some have worked, some have not worked. It has been pretty cool to see that. But every month I bring on a guest speaker related to topics, related to the topics that we're discussing. And Marty, you don't want me to call you Doc, right?
You can call me whatever you want.
Okay.
My wife calls me shithead. Maybe we should start with that.
I don't know that I've earned that right yet. You know, y'all been married, what'd you tell me, 40 years?
We've been together 46 years. That's given her the right.
So I think she's probably deserved the right to call you that. I have not. So I'm just going to stick with Dr. Marty. Okay.
That's fine. Marty Nemko is fine. Anyway.
Okay. So we have Marty Nemko here, and here's why I think he's the perfect reason to lead us in this conversation. So the biggest thing I want to highlight is he is the author of Careers for Dummies, which, you know, is a part of the Dummies series, which I've probably got, I don't know, more copies of that than I need to admit. He has a PhD in psychology from UC Berkeley, right? Am I getting that correct? He's been a career coach to over 4,800 students.
5,500.
5,500. Your website is out of date then. I got it. I got all this from your website. 5,500 students.
Client, that's, you know, people who are career problems. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think that's awesome. And you're in your 30th year hosting the Work with Marty Nemko radio show on NPR-San Francisco. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. So if there's any question on why Marty is here, hopefully in the next couple of minutes, we're going to answer that. You've also written about, I think you said 3,800 articles and 12 books on psychology.
Right. Mainly about career stuff, but certainly I've written a bunch about negotiation.
Yep. And I looked up that one we talked about yesterday that was published in Psychology Today. So I'll make mention of that in the show notes when that gets ready. It was compensation compensation negotiation for employees, because what we're about at the W2 Capitalist is also making sure we're making huge strides in our W2 careers, but also making huge strides in our real estate investing. So with that being said, Mr. Pimp, Dr. Marty, we want to make a couple of comments. So give us a few minutes. And then what I'd like to do is, people are still joining in, what I'd like to do is go through a couple of questions, and then we'll get into the role play scenarios.
Okay. You know, one of the kind of unspoken principles of negotiation is one I want to raise questions about. It's almost implicit that you should try to negotiate hard to get the best deal you can. And having been party to hundreds of negotiations, both as a principal, but also helping my clients, and I look back at the results of all those negotiations, I've come to a conclusion in my recent years that it's wise to not negotiate too hard, because too many bad things could occur. Number one, and this may sound a little holier than thou, but you get too good a deal and you've screwed somebody and you don't feel really good about it. Or you're too tough and they back off and don't do the deal at all, and you realize, oh, damn, I really should have done the deal. And three, it's very oppositional and stressful. So even this book you're reading, you know, never split the difference. But, you know, I think that's generally true but there's an occasional time when you feel like that's going to close the deal and it's really cosmically just, which again sounds high and mighty, but it's ultimately a good way usually to negotiate. If it feels cosmically right, say, you know what, this is not like a negotiating ploy, but if you will split the difference, we've got a deal. That's not a negotiating position. That's a deal. So there's, you know, the undergirding principle of everything I'm going to say is justice, cosmic justice, and that one size does not fit all. Sometimes you need to be tough because the other guy is going to treat your kindness as a sign of weakness and roll over you. But there are other times when, depending upon who you're negotiating with, you're being seen as a statesman or a stateswoman, will set exactly the right tone, and it can be brief, pleasant, not stressful, and importantly, it paves the way for future negotiations that will work beautifully, or future desire to do deals with you, whether you're a W-2 employee. They're less likely to want to fire you. You could have a fight with your boss about, I want an extra 10 grand, and you can nail him to the cross and you get the extra 10 grand. But first of all, you're only keeping half of it after taxes.
Right.
And second of all, now he or she is pissed. So you know what? You squeezed my short hairs to get that extra 10 grand. But boy, now I'm going to have really high expectations for this person. And if he's not good, he or she's going to go on the top of that layoff list. So I'm, in general, a fan of moderation in negotiation.
Yeah. I completely agree. What I love about the book is it does attack negotiation from a completely different side of that, right? And it's written from a former FBI top, negotiator. So we're not really talking in our situations. It's not life or death. But the author of the book, Chris Voss, wants you to focus on it. So I am kind of relieved to hear you say that a little bit, because I agree with you. I don't think that everything is not life and death, right? And sometimes, can you get a square peg into a round hole? Yes. But does that mean that things are going to break? More than likely, right? And you highlighted a bunch of different things there that I think is perfect to that. So it leads me to my first question, right? You bring up, hey, I want to ask for a $10,000 raise kind of thing. So when negotiating, and you're talking about people being kind to run all over you. So here's what I've discovered about myself. Okay. And you get a chance to throw me under the bus in front of my peers here. But when negotiating, I've discovered I want people to like me more so than I want the best deal out of the negotiation. For example, if we're negotiating on a deal and I pick up that you like me, I tend to drop my guard, and I'm kind of come to terms a lot quicker. But if somebody is a complete and utter asshole and I just don't like them, I'm going to dig my heels even more, dig them in even more. And most often and always, I'm going to have a concrete stance on somebody that I don't like. But if I'm figuring out, hey, that you like me, I tend to drop my guard and I tend to loosen up a little bit. Why is that? What is and do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing?
Most people want to be liked, and it depends on, again, everything. You're going to hear me say this ad nauseum. It depends on the situation.
Okay.
I like somebody, but I'm still not. I don't love them or whatever. Maybe they're being very nice because they want to be as part of a negotiation ploy. They're being Mr. Nice or Ms. Nice or even Ms. Flirtatious to try to get me to give them a good deal. I'm not necessarily going to fall for that. I'm going to, if I genuinely like him, I might be a little softer. I'm a human being, but I'm going to try to, where possible, stick to the merits. And the merits could be, let's take a real estate. There's this horrible company I really don't like that posts, it's a consortium of people, home investors, I think it's called. I probably would get in trouble for being so, but it's an opinion. I don't like them because they basically put, as far as I know, in my opinion, they put up signs in low-income areas to get people to sell their houses to members of this home investors group at way, way below fair market value. So these are poor, vulnerable people who may not know what the value of the property is. They're not going to get comps. They're not going to whatever. And they'll be very subject to all kinds of BS. And, there I'm going to want, if I'm negotiating with somebody who's ignorant, I want to get a good deal, but I don't want to rape my client. I don't want to get such a good deal, especially if it's a low income person, to send them into the poorhouse. So more important than whether I like them or not is this cosmic justice concept. I want to get a good deal, but I don't want to be abusive, period.
Gotcha. Okay. So you see that as a good thing then, right? You see that as more of a good human nature trait. Because my follow-up question is, how do I get out of that? Within limits. I mean, look, I'm going to be, just because I'm blatantly honest.
Yep.
I discovered that yesterday, and that's what I enjoy. So
Ned is beautiful. She is just simply a beautiful woman. And so it is very tempting for me to give her an extra good deal because she's beautiful.
Yep.
But that would be a mistake. I'm not going to try to, be hard. I want to try to stay on the merits. I'm going to try to be kind. I'm going to try to be a human being. I'm going to treat her with respect. But I'm going to want to get what is a cosmically just deal within the range of normality, not ripping her off. I want to get a good deal.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to try to get, seduced by her beauty.
So we're going to pick on Annette for a minute. So in that scenario, if I'm negotiating with Annette and I'm having trouble with getting over that hurdle, what should I do to stick to the merits, as you say?
You remind yourself of the word. I used to keep using the word cosmic justice. What would God say is an appropriate deal? It doesn't have to be split 50-50. You're entitled to a little bit of extra because you've done your homework. You've identified what fair market value is. You can make a reasonable case for why you deserve a little better deal. Sure. But it's always keeping that in mind. Your ultimate arbiter is cosmic justice. What's right for the world?
Okay.
That will help you. And in a more mundane way, look at the numbers. You want to be what I like to say is soft on the people, harder on the numbers. So I might play, I might even flirt, to try to get a fun, relaxed look. I'm a straight guy, so I wasn't flirting with you, but yes, we're frozen. I'm not seeing you now.
You're good.
You're good. Okay. So we had a great time. Whether or not it improved our interview together or not, I did try to have a good time and try to treat you with respect and had a great time. I'm going to do that with whoever I'm going to negotiate with. Now, some people are not going to, they're going to have their green iron shade on, and they're going to have their list and their spreadsheet and all the rest of it, and they clearly don't want to deal with me. So fuck them. I'll just be straight and, by the numbers.
Yeah.
But my goal is try to be cosmically just as much as I can.
Okay. I'm going to have to dive into that more. Not right now, but I'm going to have to do some research on that. I think that's an incredible way to look at it. I don't know that I've heard the phrase cosmic justice in a while, but it makes total sense. It definitely does. So one of the things that we talked about, so we're going to go to question number 2, and I'm going to keep, regardless of how many we get to, I'm going to keep it to, we're going to stop at 5:25 5 Central Time, and then we're going to get into the role play because I know that's probably going to be what most everybody's interested in seeing and hearing. So, in our mastermind group this week, we discussed seasons that investors tend to go through. And it seems when I personally have a ton of cash in my personal accounts, I have less problems asking others to invest, and vice versa, right? If I don't have a whole lot of money in my personal accounts, then I struggle with asking people to come and be part of a deal. So we're talking about raising money for, multifamily or syndication of those types of scenarios. All in all, I struggle with asking people to invest. I have a friend of mine, or he's actually a business partner on a deal where I know if I need to raise money, he's the guy I'm going to call because he has no problem with articulating that. Again, this is about me.
Yep.
So what is that? Why do I struggle with that? Because I don't think it's a confidence issue, or maybe it is.
I don't have a brilliant answer because while I may have a PhD in educational psychology, I tend to think of things in very practical terms, not psychological terms. I don't know why in the world, you're, if you've got less money in your account, you're less likely to ask people. But I can only say if you can stay focused on the numbers, if in terms of cosmic justice, there is a multifamily housing deal and it pencils out really well, the cash flow is good, the price is good, you've done the due diligence on the inspections, and you can look God in the eye. And I'm an atheist, so it's not like I believe in God. I don't. But if I can feel like it is just, I look at that pro forma, whatever they call it, and I can say, you know what, this is a legitimate deal, and I am offering my investors a reasonable rate of return, given the risk reward ratio. I don't give a fuck whether I have 2 cents in my account or I have 20 million. It's just for them to invest in this. Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely does. Yep. I've got to, I think and I'm asking that because I was hoping you had the psychological answer and give me some exercises I can go work on, because I think there is something that I've got to learn about myself to get past that. And
you could be right. It's one of my weaknesses as a counselor.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that the psychological approaches or meditation or mindfulness or looking at what your mother did to you or your father did to you, or the scarcity mindset in your home, all that insight in the world can give you insight, but it doesn't make you function any better in the real world.
Yeah.
So I tend to, in the end, focus on, what logically makes sense, and remind yourself to push the bullshit out of your mind, the stuff that is irrelevant, that is not rational, and say, I'm not going to indulge that. I am going to stay on the merits, on the ethical merits and on the financial merits, and the hell with what my mother did to me.
Well, and for the record, I have great parents. They're still together. I love them to death. I don't see them enough. I know. So they are. I have really, really good parents. So I don't think there's anything there that we could uncover if we got on that. If I got on your couch and talked about things that I thought would happen. So I might be surprised. But anyway, one of the things also too, and this kind of goes along with the W2 side of the world, is that, we're in this review season for a lot of folks. And a lot of people struggle, myself struggle identifying their own awesomeness. Right. And what I mean by that is, the other night, so I'm not a very experienced public speaker. Matter of fact, this month I had 4 speaking engagements, and that was probably the extent of my resume, right, is public speaking. And one of the guys after one of the events came up and told me that I did a great job, and I blew him off. No, I didn't, and I didn't take credit for anything. And but in the same thought, I'm sitting here criticizing everything in my mind of what I should have said different or what I should have done different. What is, why do we tend to hold on to constructive criticism more than we do compliments?
We should. We do not grow from complaint. If somebody says I'm good at something, I don't grow at all from it. If somebody makes a criticism, it could be wrong, but unless I weigh it carefully, I am not going to grow. I am a violent, if that's the right word, I am a strong opponent of the whole self-esteem movement. most of this, I've had the privilege of being a career coach and personal coach to some of the most successful people on the planet. And you know what? Most of them don't have high self-esteem. They're always worrying that they're not good enough. You know, say, I'm great, I can do it all, I'm amazing, there's a genius in all of us. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Most people are deeply flawed, and we get better by introspection and saying, damn it, I really could be much better. What am I going to do next time to be better? What am I going to do next time to be better? That's especially true of new graduates. They graduate in their major in business or from law school or their psychology degree or even medical school. I teach in the medical school at UCSF. And they don't know squat in the beginning. They're right to feel like imposters because they are imposters. They say, you know what? They say, you know, you're okay just for who you are. Accept yourself. Bullshit. Then you're consigned to mediocrity. Most successful people are worried that they are not good enough and try to get better every minute of the day. Now, I'm not saying that's an easier way to live life, but ultimately it's a way to be more successful and then ultimately feel better about yourself.
I got you. In a way, I think you just gave me a compliment. No, you did. You definitely answered my question, and I appreciate that. Hey, James, what's going on, buddy? James is another member of our W2 Capitalist Mastermind, so glad to have you.
Hey, James.
One of the other questions I want to make sure I want to get to, and then at 5:25 we're going to get into some of the role play. Is you know, a lot of the book that we go through and a lot of the stuff we've talked about is verbal communication, right, and verbal negotiation. But what are some of the best negotiation strategies, if there are any, that we can do as a written form? Because a lot of what we go through as real estate investors is here's a contract. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's written, a lot of emails that are swapped with realtors, potential buyers, potential sellers. You know, some of the negotiation strategies we talked about were mirroring and labeling, and those sorts of things. So is there some good strategies for written negotiation, or is it just best to get on the phone and have a verbal conversation?
I am a big fan of verbal, in-person, video, because it's, you know, when there is no interpersonal, then it is just purely cold by the numbers, and you also can't read the other person. So
Yeah.
I'm going to, instead of evading your question like most politicians do, I would say if I'm forced to submit something in writing, I will probably include a cover letter first before I get to the term sheet.
Right.
I'll say something, you know, it was a real pleasure going through your property. I really like, don't ever say, I hate the stupid property. It's real. I'm going to, you know, you think you're going to get them to lowball? No, I really love your property. I see, even if it's a shithole, I would say you've got enormous potential here. And it's a privilege to be able to try to bring to fruition what is a great property. You've also been a pleasure to talk with. I appreciate your candor about this and that. And so I like to think that the term sheet that I'm sending is fair to both of us. So by saying that, you are absolutely setting the stage for a kind negotiation. You're not just playing hardball asshole, which
Right.
I think in general works better. Okay.
Which you think sending a kind letter works better than being a hardball asshole is what you said, right?
Start with that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're finding somebody who ends up, he is from the Marine Drill Sergeant School of Negotiation, and he's going to just try to pump you, you don't want him to see you're a wuss, as I said earlier. Otherwise, he's going to try to roll over you.
Yeah.
And I will call it. If I feel he's lowballing me or hiding key information or otherwise bullshitting me, in a nice way, I'll say, you know, I'm wondering, how did you get that number? Because in my research, it seems to me that the fair market price should be X. And yet you as a seller are saying it should be, you know, 1.3X. How'd you get that number? I won't take it, bad behavior, but I'm gonna try to be nice, but right. I'm gonna call them on.
Let's go to Annette. Annette, you got your hand raised. You got a question or a follow-up?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. So I just wanted to share that with the first property that we bought, we did do a cover letter, and I think that set us apart from everybody. So we you know, did an introduction that this was our first deal and that we were very excited, and this was a property that was in their family. for a long time, and we said like we would keep it two in our family. And I think that was kind of like set us apart because they had multiple offers on that property. And obviously we had to do a best and final offer, but we were selected. I think there were 3 people that had to do their best and final.
By the
So
way,
I think that's a good.
I would never use the term property when it's their home.
Yes.
That reminds them it's your business.
Well, it was a duplex, so
Okay.
it was.
Did they live in one part of the duplex?
I think they did when they were kids, but then they had moved and rented the duplex.
I'd still call it your home.
Yes, actually, we said we were going to live there.
But saying the
this one.
word home. Hey! Oh, I need to say hello to your daughter. What's your daughter's name?
Sienna.
Sienna.
She's getting shy. Sienna. Say hi. No, she got shy now.
Okay.
That's awesome. Thank you, Annette. So I have a similar, I did write a letter, but it was a low ball offer because it's what I thought the property was really worth. And we did not get the property. So, now
You have to know how to walk away. You definitely do. I mean, if low ball implies a way too low offer, it was a low but fair offer, and they still don't want it, and you're miles apart, you've got to have what's called walkaway power.
Yeah.
There's always another deal.
It worked out great. I mean, it was going to be our primary residence, and we walked away from it. That property sat on the market another 6 months after our initial offer that they rejected. They finally sold it, but for us, it worked out great. I mean, we couldn't be happier. We're glad it didn't work out, right? All right, so let's get into some role play scenario. And you wanted to talk about a few different scenarios. Where are my notes? And then if we run into extra time, we'll get back to some questions. But you want to talk about a pain in the ass buyer, pain in the ass seller, a not motivated seller, and a low ball offer, right?
Rather than my picking, I would welcome any of you who are either in a negotiation now or have been. I would like to see how I might handle it. Instead of, I'm not a big fan of, prepackaged anything. Any speaker can come up with some nice little story that makes everything seem so nice and
Yeah.
So I'd rather, focus on authenticity. Do any one of you have a negotiation situation you're either currently in or have been in and are curious how I'd handle it?
Yep. Annette, you have your hand raised first. Let's go to you.
Okay, I'm mute. Okay, so we are under contract for a 6-unit multifamily, and so it was listed for $590, and then we offer $560, I think, initially. They took the offer. We did the inspections. We found a lot of problems, and so we did a low offer of $516.
Mm-hmm.
And initially they said, no, we don't even want to counter. This is too low and we're not going to even go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was, in our opinion, it was a good deal because it had the possibility to increase the income later if we improved it. So, and it was really the best price that we found. In Florida, it's really hard. So there's not a lot of deals. So we decided to go higher, to offer more money, but then ask for a credit at the closing. And we asked them to replace the roof because the roofs were bad. And that was like about, there was like, the roofs only were like $15,000 and that. So then at the end, he countered then. We went back to the original price, but asked them to change the roofs and then do some other repairs. At the end, he decided, okay, no, I'm just going to lower the price, $20,000, and then you do the roofs. And that was a good thing because it gave us the money to do the roofs. That was the issue. Okay, so then after that, we had to extend the contract because throughout the inspection period and all this stuff, we took too long, we changed lenders, so we had to extend the contract. And now the seller was upset because he had in his mind wasted time. So he asked us to to pay the rent for one apartment that was empty. That according to him, he didn't rent it again because we told him that we wanted to remodel the apartment. Yes, but he didn't have to keep it empty. So anyway, so what we did is, like you were saying, I wasn't gonna lose the deal for 1 month of rent on an apartment. So we decided to go forward and say, yes, okay, we're gonna pay for that. But I'm wondering if I should have handled it in a different way. I mean, I knew that the tenants were leaving that month. So I think he was kind of lying that he left it empty because I wanted to remodel. The tenants were leaving then, and it wasn't a condition that you couldn't rent it. I mean, the carpet was disgusting. The kitchen was falling apart. He couldn't rent it that way. He would have had to remodel.
And so the amount of money was like $1,000, something like that?
It was like $825.
Right. So sometimes you want to, and maybe I'm just being a wuss here. Sometimes you want, when you sense somebody's lying, and I think you're probably right. He probably was lying. Sometimes you want to stick it to him, but that could get him defensive and the whole deal could blow up over a little crap like this. If you penciled it out and you're going to be doing just fine, thank you, you might try one more, because you know he's lying. You don't want to call him on the lie because that's going to make him defensive, but say, I don't want, and this is ironically, this example of splitting the difference. We're talking about $825 here. What do you say that you would, maybe there's an extra washers and dryers or something that isn't going to cost him much to leave or to help you with something, in exchange. And if he says no, I'd probably just let it go. But I would try one shot at getting him to give you something that you wanted. Maybe, one of the big garage, there's a lot of crap that has to be hauled away, or maybe some front landscaping or something that, and especially, again, I'm going to think cosmic justice, depending upon his skills. Maybe he himself was a plumber or a handy guy. Maybe there was some work that needed to be done. I don't know. Say, all right, if you'll do this work, we'll pay the rest. So it's not costing him that much, but let's say you're not a plumber and you can get that benefit from him. Or you're trying to figure out a way that you can let him save face. You get a good deal, but you're keeping your eyes on the prize of, this is still a hell of a deal. I'm going to get $800,000 for this property 5 years from now if I go and make these improvements. You would kill yourself, especially since you say the kind of properties you're looking for are rare in that area. Mm-hmm. You kill yourself if you gave it away, if you lost for $825. Doesn't mean I wouldn't try one more time. As I said, see if I could make a proposal to him that would make him easily say yes. And what do you think about that?
Right. Yeah. So what we did is we asked him, well, since we're going to be paying for the rent, then we want the keys. So we are able to clean up the apartment, which we can do it ourselves and doesn't cost us any money. So we have it ready for when we close and, remodel right away. And he agreed to that. And they did extend the contract, which was like an extra month, which is a long time. So perfect. I think it was a win-win.
That was exactly an example of where it wouldn't cost him much and yet it benefited you. That was exactly one of those things. You didn't jeopardize the deal at all. You got a little something. You didn't confront him about his lie or anything. And everybody's happy.
Yeah,
right?
What I find a little bit hard is like, I'm using a realtor for this deal, and for all the deals that I've done before, I'm using a realtor. So sometimes it's hard to relate, like what you would say to the owners through the realtor. So it could change. Like she could use a different tone. She could offend them. I mean, it's out of your control, and it's really hard for me because I am really good at negotiating, and the realtor is really good too. But you have no control, so it's hard. But what I do is also like I will write up what I'm thinking and send it to the realtor and tell her forward this to the owner. So like they get my thinking,
I don't know what the law is, but if I felt in a given situation like that, I would do a better job than the realtor. Why can't you? Are you allowed to ask the realtor, say, would you mind if I'm not going to blow up the deal, don't worry. Do you mind if I chat with the person and take them out for coffee? Food is the great lubricant.
Right. I did reach out to the owner. I sent him an email because they forwarded an email and he had his email. So I kind of like try to reach to him saying, look, I want to know when is the trash day because we want to clean up the apartment. And he replied and he copied the realtor. So that let me know that he didn't want to deal with me. He wanted me to deal through the realtor, I think. So I'm going to try a second time with some other question to see if he because I would like to meet him. I think we could, it could be advantageous for me if I meet him.
And also fun. What I would do if I email, say, we're doing all this big negotiation. We're two human beings. I like to deal with human beings. We have to, I have to deal with a realtor, sure. But I'm wondering about this little stupid thing. Can I take you out for coffee? What's your favorite place to go out for coffee? And that kind of tone, it just makes everything work easier and life is more fun.
Agree. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
My wife is, she always, when she's got a hard negotiation, my wife's the superintendent of schools in Napa County. And she's very often in hard negotiations with the unions, with an angry parent who's threatening to sue, with one principal who's ready to kill the other principal. You know what her secret weapon is? Brownies.
Brownies.
She makes brownies in the morning, and she sets at the meeting. She comes in with this beautiful smelling chocolate brownies. She puts them in the middle of the table. Say, we'll talk in a few minutes. Let's have coffee and a brownie. It's hard to be as hard when you've had a brownie.
I'm gonna have to learn some dessert recipes then.
So you're Latina, so some flan maybe or whatever.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I love flan.
Terry, can I ask you a question real quick? So Marty brought up the legality of a buyer talking to a seller without the realtor involved. And Marty, so just so you know, Terry is our resident broker based in Colorado. So Terry, and I'm assuming these laws are probably local, right? State laws. Is there a law that says as a seller, you can't talk to the buyer or vice versa without realtor present? Or is that just an controlling agent that's trying to work the situation?
Yeah, there's no law that I'm aware of that prohibits it. Not always the best idea, just like you've described the situation. It appears that he did not want to be contacted other than through his realtor when he responded and copied the realtor that way. Yeah, and of course, realtors get really touchy about any sort of circumventing, especially if you're doing some sort of negotiation. Now, bringing parties together to have a Q&A on, if it's a big building and you've got a lot of questions about, vendors and different things, not a problem at all. The other thing I'd like to say, Marty, is that something we all have to be careful of now as realtors is allowing the love letters to occur. Frequently they won't, Colorado has written a position piece on it, and it's essentially don't do it. What they were finding was that love letters contained information in it that were violations of the Fair Housing Act. And so you're mentioning things like familial status, or maybe sexual orientation, or race, or something, and that sellers could maybe glean information and say, oh, I think this family might fit better here than that couple might fit, etc. They've even talked about going so far as to delete like last names and things from contracts, so people don't say, oh, well, they're the Sanchez's. We don't want the Sanchez's on this block, or, something like that. So they've gotten very, very touchy about that. Now, can you write a general letter? I love your home. It's close to my work. You don't say I'm a police officer, or I'm a, you don't talk about that. You just kind of keep it a little more general. You can still do that, but it was starting to cause problems and actual court cases. So,
wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Interesting stuff. Okay. And it's not that they want the Sanchez's, they don't want the Helms to move next door. I'm glad that that's getting changed.
They don't know that.
Yeah. Jamie, I think you wanted to ask Marty. I perhaps called you Doc. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah, am I good? Can you hear me, Marty?
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, well, first of all, thank you for coming on and spending some time with us. I really appreciate it, and looking to grow from this. So I wanted to ask you about my W2 position. I'm in the medical device sales world, and give you a little bit of background. We make a product that's backed by clinical research that uses a higher quality material for the most part. It costs more. However, it reimburses the same amount as competitors that can be cheaper and that are, just plain up ineffective. So what I run across sometimes is trying to convince a doctor or an office that a better product backed by science is better actually for their patients and their practice than just looking at the upfront cost of the material and goods. And I was just curious kind of how if you had any suggestion on how to overcome that. If I've given all the information that I feel is relevant to make that decision and they still decide not to make that decision, kind of where to go from there.
Yeah. Doctors are real busy, and they, in many ways, they hate sales reps. And so what raised a red flag for me is that you gave them all the information. That's a mistake. Seems to me you want to give it what they give a shit about is going to be, if they're a surgeon, ease of use. Let's say it's a stent. You're going to be able to insert this, instead of the average 3 or 4 minutes, in 1 to 2 minutes, and here is the data. And here is the data that supports it. Hospital readmissions as a result of this is only 3% versus the competitive 5%. You just, in 3 or 4 sentences, the reimbursement you're going to get reimbursed the same amount either way. The list price is higher, but that should be irrelevant to you. Here are the 3 reasons, data driven, why our product is better for your patients and you. Bing, 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 and then get out of there. And then say, is there anything else I can answer for you? Salespeople make a mistake of talking too much, especially to doctors. Make sense?
I'm very guilty of that. I want to tell them how much I know, sometimes. And I know I do it and I try not to, but that's great advice. Thank you.
Crisp. Crisp is the number one word, especially with doctors. They don't have time. They are smarter than you.
Yeah.
And they will get it really fast if you give them the essential data. If you're going long-winded, it means you're not smart enough to be concise. You don't know how to really whittle it down to what's the essence. You've got to, even if you have to script it in advance, say the 3 big, I know you're busy, Dr. Jones, but this thing is going to benefit you and your patients for these 3 reasons, and then I'll get out of your hair. Bing, bing, bing. Any questions? I'm out of here. And yeah, if you need to close them, close them once. You want a trial order? I'd be happy to give you a trial, whatever. But bing, quick, crisp.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Anybody else have a scenario they want to run by the pimp, Dr. Marty? I have one for you then. So I struggle with when I'm working with my realtor and they tell me straight up front, hey, this is the lowest he'll go, or this is the lowest she'll go.
That's all bullshit. I don't trust those words.
I don't buy it either. But for some reason, maybe it's I trust too much. I'm like, okay, well then what will they accept? Okay. And then this magic number just dramatically appears.
I don't immediately jump at that right away. Yeah. It depends first of all, I've done my homework.
Right.
I really looked at the comps and adjusted the comps appropriately. And if let's say that, and I've done my fair market value, and I believe that if I got a good deal, it would be 500,000. If I got an okay deal, it would be 520. And if it was more than that, there's other deals. And they say 575 is the lowest, they'll go. I'll say, we're just too far apart. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Notice the tone. I'm not a laid back guy, but I want to sound at that point. I'm sorry, that's just too far apart. I guess you'll find another seller, perhaps, or not. If your client is interested in a 500 offer, let me know. And I'd hang up.
Yeah, you got to stick to the numbers, right? It's something we talk about all the time. But you got to find that number that works for you, and if it doesn't work, go on to find the next deal, right?
Or sometimes, if it's an enormous difference, all this small stuff's not going to matter. But let's say you're in a bad cash flow situation and your credit sucks. And so you would love owner carry. And you're willing to pay a little bit more for owner carry at a 3% rate, for 10 years. You might be willing to pay more, so you don't always walk away. I'm not saying you do. But generally, if it's too big a gap, all that stuff's not going to matter that much. But if it's like 30,000 gap or something like that, then you can talk about, okay, the furniture. Okay, you can talk about the roof. Okay, you can talk about the washer dryers. Okay, you can talk about owner carry. Or you can talk about lower down. You know, you can talk about stuff once you're in a, you know, in a doable ballpark. But if they're screwing you and they're just giving you some super elevated price, the best thing you could probably do is walk. Because if they're doing that for starters, they're probably going to screw you every step of the way.
Yeah.
You know, once you're under contract, they're going to find some other reason to raise the price. They're going to accuse you of this or that. You don't need that.
Nip it in the bud as soon as you can, right?
I think so.
Somebody, okay. I thought I heard something else. Sorry. I clicked off my screen to look back at my notes. And I heard something, but I thought, anyway, we'll skip past that part. One of the things that we do in the W2 Capitalist Mastermind is we set goals, right? There's 1 3-year, 5-year visions, and then there's 12-week goals that we try to accomplish. What are some of the psychological powers of being able to do that, seeing your goals and being held accountable for those goals as we try to strive toward them?
Yeah, the majority of self-improvement experts talk about the value of goals. They're concrete. You can meet them. Every sales manager gives their person a quota, even if it's pulled out of their asses. It's just some number. Because some people tend to want to meet our goals, and if it's concrete, we can have a little, our little milestones. We did this today.
A little party for ourselves, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. So for most people, that works. I like to present different views. So for whatever it is,
yep.
I tend to not have goals at all. What I tend to do is I tend to do the best damn job of everything I can do in that moment. So right now, I've got a million things in my life going on. Great things, wonderful, but a lot. But right now, I don't give a shit about any of them. All I give a shit about is you guys. All I'm doing is focused. And I know when I need to prepare, I don't need to prepare for this. I know I could do this. But I don't have any goal. I try to fill my life with as many good things as possible where I can do as much good as I can. And I decide, okay, what do I need to do to prepare? Nothing? Good. That way, between 2 and 3, I've been working on my taxes as it happens, right? I'm very aware of time. I make the most of every minute. I don't set any big goals. Certainly if I'm writing a book, I don't set a date for when my book's I've written 12 books. I don't set a date for when it's going to be done. I'm just, every spare minute, I'm writing the book. And if it's done in 4 months, great. If it takes a year, great. I don't believe in arbitrary deadline because goals are often where you can't predict the weather tomorrow. How the fuck are we going to predict a year from now we're going to meet this goal? So most people disagree with me, but I don't have goals.
I appreciate the viewpoint, right? Because we at W2 Capitalist, we're on the opposite end of that, right? Is we get very specific about our goals. I personally struggle with if I have free time that's not time blocked to do a specific task, I'm going to be goofing off on my phone or, watching TV that I shouldn't be, just watching something on Netflix when I should be doing something productive. Right. So I struggle with that tremendously, but it's great to hear another side of the story. I've never heard somebody, especially somebody with a PhD behind them, say, I don't have goals. I just do it. I
want to explain that. When you have discretionary time, you choose to go watch TV or argue with your wife about whether Clemson or Bama's got a better football team.
This year was Clemson, right?
Of course. But the problem, you're treating the symptom when you create goals. The real way to get to the source of the problem is to recognize, and this is going to again sound holier than thou, it's going to recognize that the life well led is about contribution and productivity. If you're sitting and playing a video game, if you're just eating and having a long leisurely dinner, you aren't accomplishing squat. So if you tend to fool around too much, the answer is not to create these artificial constraints like goals and rewards and punishments. It's to say to yourself, I need to have a better sense of values about what the meaningful life is. And if the meaningful life is finding great property that's undervalued and making it wonderful so that the subsequent tenants are going to be happy and be grateful in the home, then you say, of course I'm going to do that. I would never be tempted to play a video game because it's a far greater value for me to work on that property.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have any goals, you don't say, I'm going to get the house is going to be all redone in 6 months. No, you find yourself with an extra half hour and say, oh, okay, I need to see, where can I get really good remnants cheap for those carpets? Ooh, I keep looking at this. How can I add more space? Ooh, maybe if I cut a hole in the floor of the living room and put a spiral staircase down and then made that into a family room. It's realizing that the most valuable thing you can ever do with your time is being productive.
And for me, I have to schedule that out. Otherwise, I get so scatterbrained. I've never been diagnosed with ADD. I guess it's because I never really complained about it when I went to the doc. But it's just been so, like, if I have that shiny object syndrome, where if I don't have and I don't know where it is, but it's a cheat sheet that I use every day. Hey, I want to get this, and this done. If I don't have that in front of me, I typically don't get a whole lot done. I don't know what that says about me. I think you gave me some insight there, but it does help me stay on pace, if that makes sense.
I will say this, I do on my desk. I have obviously I have a smartphone, but I don't use Google Calendar. I don't use any of that. What I do use, which keeps me on track with the things I have to do, is I have an old-fashioned pencil and paper week at a glance calendar. There's my this week. You can see what my life is like. For the things that are scheduled, like my clients throughout the week. And then there are things that don't have a specific time associated with it, but that day I want to get done. So I simply have a little memo cube, and I simply write down those, and I keep that right on my desk. And that you never run out of battery. You're keeping it right in front of you. And I'm always laughing to myself when my clients and I are scheduling the next appointment. It takes them forever to get their iPhone to the right page on the calendar, whatever. I got it written in 1 second, and it's taking a minute. So right. I love my system, and it keeps me from forgetting stuff. There you go. Right.
Terry's got hers too, right?
Right.
So we're coming up on time. I've got one last question. I want to make sure everybody else, if they have any follow-ups, but one of the things that we want to do is practice negotiating. What are some of the drills that we can do that will help us in negotiating scenarios? And this could be for your W-2 job or for real estate, but let's stick with the real estate just for the sake of time. What are some of the drills that we can do as a group, in a virtual setting like this, that will help everybody?
Hard to say. I do know for sure that in the end, negotiation really, and especially in something like real estate, depends tremendously on your doing your homework. It really is knowing what is the value of the property, what's the best deal you can get on that pest control report, instead of buying the seller's got some jacked up report. Doing the homework on that, doing the homework and finding out, there are websites that list, for example, the lowest mortgage rates, and really checking out. So if the owner is going to sell them, but he wants to charge you 4.5% for 10 years, and you can show them comparables that there really are lenders that'll do for 3.75% with no closing costs. Doing your homework, there's no substitute for that. Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Do you have any pointers on negotiating with banks? Because banks, to me, bank is a 4-letter word to me. I don't like them.
Again, I think, because there are so many lenders.
Yeah.
For me, I probably would, if I'm always aware of time, but it is a good use of my time to check with a mortgage broker who is legendary for doing a great job, and a couple of originator banks that are known for doing home loans, for example, or multifamily loans. You contact them, you make the best case you can. You say, what's the best deal you can give me on a fixed rate, 10-year balloon, or whatever the hell you want, or an arm that's, whatever it is. What are the best deals you can give me? And then you go to the one or two maybe one mortgage broker that is great, and then one or two banks. And now you've basically, and then I let it go. I've done a reasonable amount of comparison shopping, but I haven't gone crazy with it. And that's about as good as I'm going to, and I just might. Let's say my old buddy is over there at First Tuscaloosa, and he said, yeah, I think I can get you 4.45 with a 1.5. And you go and you
I
find
love your
out
accent, by the way.
it sucks, right? It really is terrible, right? It's a New York Jew's attempt at a Southern accent. It's like, I can barely eat cornbread. What the hell do I know about? Anyway, so you know, and then I go to the mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker can get me 3.9 with no closing costs, and in my very Southern way, I'd say, Joe, I really appreciate your offer at 4.45, but I just happen to have come across a deal with First Provincial of Tuscarora, and they're able to give me this deal, and I'd love to do business with you, but you know, I just can't see my way to pay more. Is there any way you can beat that deal? If not, I'm going to have to say goodbye to you on this one. Maybe next time. What do you think, sir? And you know, and then see. So I've gone back to him one time, and but I've been a nice Southern person. You know, I haven't been my tough New York Jew guy self. And then I live with that's about as good as I'm going to get.
Okay.
I'm not going to spend time going to 10 lenders. That's not a good use of my time. One or two banks that I know are good for this kind of this kind of property, one great mortgage broker, and I'm done. Or if not the seller. Sometimes I can get a better deal from the seller.
Yeah. Yeah.
No prepayment penalty. If I think I might, it depends. Sometimes you don't care about a prepayment penalty because you're planning on holding the property forever. But if you're saying, you know, shit, I want to turn this.
Right.
And you want to get a great deal, then clearly a prepayment penalty, no prepayment penalty is going to be in your interest.
Yeah. Okay. Annette, you have your hand raised?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I think, sorry, I'm just situating again. One of the things is like sometimes we forget to ask. Like we go to the bank and we engage with mortgage brokers and they give us their rate and we don't ask for any discounts. Like we don't, you know, like I am Latin. I am used to negotiating everywhere in Peru. Right. So you just go to the market and you negotiate for potatoes and tomatoes.
It's
and
fun.
Then you go to a store, you go to the bazaar, you're always asking for a discount. Always.
Exactamente. So, yeah.
So I am used to it. So my husband is always like, you ask them, you go, you tell them. So, you know, on the last deal that I was working on, I asked the banker, you know, is there any better rate that you can give me? You know, I asked first to the guy that I used to work. His rate was really high compared to a new company that I ended up using and closing. And I asked him, can you do any better? And he did give me a lower rate, but it wasn't as good as the new one that I got. So I ended up going with the new person. But at least, you know, he gave me a reduction, and it might have been better than the new one that I was looking at, and I would have stayed with him.
Hay un método mejor. Because if you say, can you do better, the answer, it almost begs him to say, no, that's my best deal. But if you
say, well, I didn't say it like that. I did say, like, you know, I really like working with you, and, you know, we've closed on 2 other deals, but I am getting a better rate by another person, okay, by a new banker. So, and I think I said something like, I guess I did say, can you do any better?
I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but if I were doing it, I would say, I would start out as you did it. I enjoyed working with you on the last 2 deals. I think you see I'm a good customer. I pay back the loans, but I have gotten a significantly better deal. So I was about to take it, but in honor of our previous relationship, I wanted to give you one last shot. What is the best deal in terms of rate, prepayment, and points that you can give me? And I'll either say yes or no.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll do that. But in general, like, we just sometimes are used to getting what they tell us and not, you know, negotiating. And, you know, then after that, you know, I ended up for a second deal that I'm working on, I got the rate from the bank, and it was high. So then I found another bank that was willing to do for a lot less, which I was approved today. So I'm very excited. But I had to have a plan B in case this bank wouldn't work. So, you know, I also negotiated the rate with a private lender that he started with, like, you know, 9, I think, and then we ended up with 7.8. So it's always good to, well, it's a private lender. It was the plan B for the 5.25 that I was getting with the bank, if that didn't work.
You know,
So,
maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not in this field at all, but I hear that I was watching CNBC today, and they said that the average mortgage lending rate is 4.25. Now, I recognize that commercial property is going to be somewhat higher, but I always think in terms of what must it cost the bank? What is their cost of money? They're probably paying 1% for that money, and maybe 2. And I don't want to give them 5, 6, 7. Fuck them. I'm going to probably, before I am willing to give in, I'm going to go and I will speak to a mortgage broker, and I will do there are great online tools that list the lowest mortgage rates by region. I always, whether I'm buying lumber, or I'm buying roofing, or I'm buying labor services, or I'm buying a mortgage, I'm thinking of what must that be the rock bottom price, and I want to get as close to that as I can ethically can. You saw I made a face, 7.25%. Screw you! I'm not going to do that. That's going to cost me a fortune, and their cost of money is way below that. That's where I would get tougher. I would, in a nice way, but I would keep looking until I found somebody who was in my ballpark. I believe, I may be wrong, but I think bankrate.com lists the nation's mortgage rates. I may be wrong. That could be just CD rates and stuff, but there definitely are websites that list all the mortgage rates. You want to be able to compare broadly and start with the low cost ones who have good, some are sleaze bags, and then they use that as some low rate as a come on. And then when you get there, they jack you up. Oh, that's only for the super prime rate if you have an 840 credit score, but yours is only 760. So, so some of them could bullshit you. But start by finding the highly rated lenders that have low rates.
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's true. Like those websites, I've done it actually, Bankrate, and they start with like 4 point something. And then once you put, it's a duplex or a 6 unit, it goes up. And then it's, a rental property goes up. And it's not my primary home, and then it goes up. So you end up with kind of the same rates. But yeah, this particular plan B was a private lender. So it's a lot more expensive than a bank. And that's because if we were to use that, we didn't have time to engage with another bank because of the closing time. You had to close right away. But luckily, I don't have to use that option.
I would much sooner negotiate to try to get that closing date extended, because that's gonna kill me. 7.25%, unless it's just for a year. If it's a bridge loan, I don't care that much.
Yeah, it was a short-term loan. It
Okay.
was not. It was 6 months.
Oh, that's nothing. Then I don't care. But if it's a mortgage, if I need to keep place 5 years, it's gonna kill me. I'm not gonna, then it's worth my time.
You're getting attacked, Annette.
No, I mean, it's good advice, but I did, I did do some of, of the same things. I did go on the websites. I looked all over the place, but that was my plan B in case the bank didn't go. And we had already extended the contract twice. So I couldn't extend it anymore.
I understand. Fair enough. Again,
Yeah.
Once you said it was 6 months, again, bridge loans are going to be more expensive because it takes them as much paperwork to do a 6-month loan as a 30-year loan. So that's going to be a different story. And I'm talking about when you're expecting to hold a loan for 5, 10 years.
Agree.
Dr. Marty, we had one question from some attendees in the chat. Is how do you request a raise at your W2 job when you don't have an external job offer? Great.
Well, the key again is preparation. You should normally do in the 6 months before you're expecting to ask for a raise, when, let's say, your performance review is going to be in March, starting in, say, September, maybe even ongoing. You just keep a little word file of all your wins, everything you've done well, everywhere you've either made the company or nonprofit some money, or you streamlined a process, or you improved esprit de corps by hosting the great Christmas party or whatever the hell it was. And you have a list of those, which you then send to your boss in anticipation of the salary review and salary negotiation. And in addition, you project forward. You say, as you can see, I've done all these great things, and moving forward, I hope to be able to do this, this, and this. And therefore, it seems to me that it's worth, a 20% raise. And again, you always want to ask for the high side of fair, not outrageous. You don't want to be a pig, but on the high side of fair so that there's a little room to go down. And it's a big mistake to focus on cash because, as I said earlier, you lose half of it in taxes because the extra 10% at the top is taxed at your top rate, which typically when you add federal income, state income tax, maybe local income, FICA, Medicare, everything, you're losing half. So, and the company gets nothing in exchange. So I rather very often will encourage my clients to negotiate for non-cash items like telecommuting. If you live in a major metro where the traffic sucks, being able to work at home is worth a fortune, and not just money, but stress and time.
James, you know anything about that? Yeah.
I might negotiate for a training budget. I might, I want you to pay for my trip to the conference in Hawaii, and again, that way it's not taxable. You're not paying any tax on that, and you're getting to grow and learn and getting to go to Hawaii on their dime. Those, but not stock options, unless it's a really public company already. Stock options are usually worth nothing. You may think about it's going to be worth zillions, but usually it's not. So that's a little short course in negotiating for salary.
Some great points there. And two, I'll link back to that article I mentioned earlier about compensation negotiation for employees that you published in Psychology Today when I post this video. So Annette, you got your hand raised. Is that you having something else, or is that from earlier?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I keep asking questions, but following up on that question about the raise, I have a hard time trying to get a raise because I work part-time in my W2. And they feel like if I don't come full-time, I shouldn't get I guess my work is not worth a raise. So I actually did have a raise a year ago because I had another offer and they wanted to keep me. And I didn't really want to move because it's just too much work. But I used it for negotiating a raise. But now, every time that if I mention a raise or money, it's like, oh, when are you coming back full time? And it's not my intent to come full time.
It's not a legitimate argument. Half-time people could still be worth more or less than they're currently making. And, if your boss is just being arbitrary, you can say, you might, I'll role play it. This is how I might word it. What's your boss's first name, by the way?
Bill.
Bill Guglielmo. Bill, you've said, and I would do this, I would time it. Wait, does he ever say something nice to you about your work? Ever?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So right after he said something nice to you, Bill, thank you very much for those kind words. I appreciate it. I know in the past you said that because I'm half-time, you don't feel I'm entitled to a raise, but it's a little difficult for me to understand that. Obviously I'm working half-time. I'm not going to get the same as a full-time person, but different half-time people are worth more and worth less. And it seems to me, in light of my having done this and this and this, and you're praising me for that, that relative to my worth, relative to what I'm contributing to the company, it would seem like instead of $45,000 a year, like 55 or 60 would seem closer to fair. Does that make sense to you, Bill? And that phrase, that acknowledges that you've heard his previous argument, but you still think it's bullshit by saying it in a nice, but saying it in a nice way.
Yeah, that's, this is not directly coming from the boss, but from my supervisor that tells me they are asking me if you're coming full time again and, blah, blah, blah. And so I said but, so when I'm here, I just have work. I'm still working. When I'm here, I'm working and I am producing and I'm, So anyways, yeah, so that's a great way to put it out when I get ready to ask for a raise. We get a raise every year, but it's just nothing. Yeah.
And if your own, let's say your own boss is wimpy, or your supervisor is wimpy about it, then you could say, would you mind, I know you've done your best, but sometimes I do my best when I'm negotiating for myself. Would you mind if I talk to your boss about it? They may say no, you know, and in certain companies, you really have to follow the rules. But sometimes I should be in a negotiating group. With your boss's permission, you may do better negotiating yourself the same way as getting around the realtor if it's legally allowable to.
Thank you.
She's not smiling.
No. Oh man. Well, Jennifer says, what about negotiating with family and kids? Jennifer, and this, Marty, I know we're up on time. We're well over an hour. Is it okay if we fill this last question and then wrap it up?
Yep.
Okay. Jennifer, you want to expand on that? What are you negotiating with your family and kids on?
Well, that was one of the points in the book that we're reading. You know, he says these negotiating tactics will work with everybody, from getting your 2-year-old, you know, to bed on time, to getting your great Uncle Joe to understand, you know, that everybody just loves him and cares about him instead of being grumpy all the time. And I think when you add that extra layer of not only history, but the emotional ties you have with these people, I don't quite understand how the same techniques for a hostage situation where somebody could die goes with Uncle Joe who doesn't like my cornbread stuffing. So if you have any insight into that.
So we need to be very specific. What is it you'd like to change about Uncle Joe?
Well, the two groups that stand out most to me where I guess the negotiating would come into play would be the very young and very old. So one of the comments being made was, you know, when you have a grumpy older family member, it's not that everybody's bothering him or that life is just so horrible. The deeper underlying meaning is he may be depressed, he may feel not so needed, or, you know, so, and if it's somebody you don't see very often, you know, you can't go to his house for Thanksgiving dinner and then just start pulling apart his emotional triggers, right. You know, so keeping the peace, but also keeping his best interest in mind, because you want to keep those ties.
Right. So probably what I would do is before Thanksgiving, I would make a call. Is he local or is he far away?
Far away.
So I'd pray. And does he do Skype or, you know, Zoom?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Phone?
Maybe.
He'll phone or FaceTime? Does he do FaceTime?
No way. Anything technology outside of a rotary dial is beyond him.
That's funny. Rotary dial. Okay. And is his name Joe?
No.
You want to tell me his first name or no?
No, I was thinking of my mother actually, but the guy in the scenario in the book, he actually used, you know, an uncle that they went to Thanksgiving.
All right. So listen, pretend your mom. And is this the issue? Are we talking about your mom here in Thanksgiving? What are you talking about? I want to
No, this is for real. Anytime anybody came to see, she lived here locally in Pensacola, but when we'd have family come, you know, from out of town, they usually came from pretty far distances. So they come with these ideas. Oh, she's going to be so excited. We're going to have a great time. And she's looking at them like, why'd you swarm in my house? And why are you here? And, you know, just general unpleasantness, which I didn't experience. But then again, I was right down the street. So I was just curious for those folks who don't have that, you know, day-to-day connection, who still are interested in their well-being. I hate saying negotiating, but, you know, that's essentially what it is. What would you advise?
I don't know, you know, no guarantees, but if it was my mom and she was a pill and we were coming there for Thanksgiving, I wouldn't just start jumping right. I would talk about things let's say she likes making that cornbread stuffing.
Yeah.
So I'd talk, Mom, I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving. My mouth's already watering for that cornbread stuffing. How you feeling about you're going to have 12 people and I want to show that I can empathize. You're going to have 12 people invading your house. How you feeling about that?
So best thing for those senior folks would be communicate more, hear what's going on with them and how they're.
A little bit to start out with. I'm saying, let's say I'm having this conversation and we're laughing a little bit. And at that moment when I've established the right rapport, then I'll say, you know, I know you try really hard to be a welcoming, warm, you know, host. That's got to be pretty hard to do. You know, I know it's difficult. You're kind of a loner and you like your privacy. And
Exactly.
how are you going to manage to pull that together? We got all those people coming up. So I'm not lecturing her. I'm asking her questions to try. Oh, well, I'm going to try to do that. It may not work perfectly, but by having the conversation without lecturing her,
Okay.
she's more likely to on her own be on her best behavior. Is she going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But are you going to make it incrementally better without a personality transplant? There's a reasonable chance.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I love that. I think that's a great way to end. There's so much other that I didn't get to, but I think that was great. Thank you, Jennifer, for asking that question. And of course, Dr. Marty the Pimp for that insight. That's awesome. I think we all have those family members. So I'll be using that pretty soon. All right, guys, that's it. Dr. Marty, thank you so much for your time. If anybody wants to follow up with Dr. Marty, his website is Marty Nemko's, NEMKO.com, and his email address is mnemko@comcast.net.com.
Yeah, .net, Comcast.net. And there is a big, nice, long chapter on negotiation in Careers for Dummies.
Yes, yes. And also, thank you for that reminder. I'll post the link to your site, also to your email, and also a link to Careers for Dummies that's out available now. You can get it on Amazon. I know that's where I found it. So, Dr. Marty, thank you again, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
All right. You take care, guys. Bye.
See you, buddy.